name is Pastor Jason Allums, and you are watching the Revival Center YouTube page. We call this The Influence. Every Tuesday, live here at 8:30 a.m. Behind the camera on the computer is Aaron Limbaugh and also Pastor Jason White. Both lead this ministry behind the scenes, and oftentimes you'll see Pastor Jason teaching here as well. With all that being said, I want to say thank you. If you have liked this video, go ahead and like it real quick. Hit that subscribe bell. Thank you so much for your support for this channel, the support for this ministry here at the Revival Center. We have well over 1,000 subscribers here on this channel, and that is how we get the influence out. It's free, it's easy. Register with YouTube, hit the notification bell, and that helps get this out there with all of these different topics that we talk about. So with that being said, over the last several teaching series here on Tuesdays, we've been dealing with suicide. We've been dealing with assisted suicide, euthanasia, all these types of things. And I encourage you to go back and watch all of the episodes because they all carry the conversation forward. So each one has a little bit different information than the other video because, again, it's a broad topic, very different layers in it. Very complex, very emotional, a lot of opinions, a lot of feelings that are attached to this subject, which is not lost on me in any aspect of it. So if something is not said today or something is said today that you may have questions about, I encourage you to go back and listen to the other episodes because a lot of those questions are probably answered and dealt with in the previous episodes because this is a very in-depth subject. So again, we approach it with sensitivity, recognizing that many people have walked through this in their family and their friends. I certainly have walked through it as a pastor with many people in our congregation that has unfortunately walked through this very subject, and it's always very hard and emotional. I've dealt with it in my own family, personally, outside of the church, so I've seen all sides of it, and so my heart goes out to each and every person and family who goes through it. And one of the reasons I wanted to deal with this subject is because it affects every aspect of life. It affects the secular world, it affects rich people, it affects poor people, it affects the church world, it affects people in different cultures, in different societies. I mean, we could do a whole teaching series of the suicide epidemic in the country of Japan. Japan is known for suicide within their culture. Again, if you just Google it, fact check me, type in suicide in Japan, and you will see the epidemic that is in Japan. In fact, we support missionaries in Japan right now. We even have a missionary here that calls this church home who wants to go to Japan and start churches and things to try to minister to that culture because suicide is so rampant in Japan. So my point of saying that is this subject, it affects everybody, and there's no foolproof, meaning like, well, if I just go to church, then I am going to be insulated from suicide. Or if I'm a rock musician and I have money and I have fame and I have fortune, then it's going to insulate me from suicide. Or I could move to another country or move locations. Or my point is that what causes suicide in a person's life, you cannot insulate yourself and try to escape it. Let me give you an example what I'm referring to. So Naomi Judd, who is a famous person here in America, committed suicide. Naomi Judd. You would think she would have it all. She was famous. She had wealth, she had power, had the ability to live a certain kind of lifestyle that you would think would insulate you from suicide. No, Naomi Judd committed suicide. Back in the 1990s, whenever I was a teenager, there was a massive suicide that took place that just really everybody was talking about it with my friends as a teenager in high school, and that was Kurt Cobain, very famous person who Again, had a lot of money, had a lot of fame, writing very, very popular songs, had a supermodel wife, just had everything you would think that people who do commit suicide, that if you have these things, then you wouldn't want to commit suicide. Well, that's not true. Kurt Cobain killed himself. Also, many of you that are watching this right now would know Robin Williams. Robin Williams, a very funny person, had the ability to make people laugh. Stand-up comedy, movies, you've watched them. Again, famous, money, you name it, he had it. Committed suicide. But suicide doesn't just affect the secular world, it also affects the church world. So in 2019, there was a mega church pastor who was actually a mental health advocate named Jared Wilson from California, who died by suicide. Again, you can look that up. So he was pastoring a church, a mega church. Again, listen to what I'm saying. Mega church. I don't pastor a mega church. I've never been a part of one. And I have my own feelings about mega churches, but a lot of times pastors will say, well, if we just had, the money that the mega church has, or if we just had the resources, or if we just had this, then my life would be so much better. You don't understand how hard it is, struggling month to month, not able to make the mortgage of the church, and the finances aren't there, and the struggle is real. I get all that, been there, done that. I've given up my salary before at a church for a whole year to help pay the debt off. So I understand the struggle of not having enough resources. And you would think, well, if we're a mega church, then all my problems are solved. Not true. This man, who was also a mental health advocate, committed suicide at a mega church. Nobody's immune to it. No, you can't insulate yourself from it. Another one, Real Life Ministries processed the suicide of Pastor Gene Jacobs. This was in, again, 2024. This was recent. Gene Jacobs was a campus pastor of a mega church. So he wasn't the main guy. He was a campus pastor. Committed suicide in the church. Another one is this guy here, Pastor David Baker, about 4 months ago, committed suicide in September 2024. He was the pastor in Colombia who had some accusations come out against him, and instead of dealing with those accusations, he ended his life. And here's one in the fellowship that I'm a part of, the Assemblies of God. His name was Pastor John Skipworth. I didn't know him personally, but I know people personally who were friends with Pastor John Skipworth. So Pastor John lived in West Monroe, Louisiana. His story was a very remarkable story of how he was in prison. He got saved, started serving as a janitor at a local Assemblies of God church, and got called into ministry, and just kind of got his life right, got everything together, and became a pastor, started a church. By all accounts, looked successful, married, had 3 kids. In August of 2023, the General Council of the Assemblies of God allowed him to come and to speak at the largest platform that we have in our fellowship and give his testimony to highlight what God had done in his life. A few short months later, he committed suicide. And so the reason I share that with you isn't to be negative. It's just to try to paint the picture that our response to suicide, our response to this subject from a Christian perspective, is not one that's going to be solved with money, not going to be solved with popularity, it's not going to be solved with what we think of as success. It's not going to be solved trying to take away your bills. It's not, or relational issues. This is a spiritual issue. This is something that happens deep down inside of us, and we have to approach it in the correct way and not try to approach it in superficial ways, because there's really no answer for the mental illness that would cause someone to take their own life except approaching it with humility and with kid gloves. So With all that being said, here are a few perspectives that we're going to end this particular teaching on that hopefully will speak to you in light of everything else that we've said in this series. So, number one, you have to seek God's kingdom first, period. You have to get this real simple when you're dealing with mental illness, depression. You got to make it simple. So the battle in our day is not between those who are for or against suicide. The real battle is being waged between the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom of darkness. That is where the real battle is being won. So we must put our eyes upon Jesus, do not worry about tomorrow, and seek God's kingdom first. Jesus' example was, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And so regardless of what people's opinions are about this subject, regardless of our opinion about this subject, people will be won or lost, not based upon reason, but based upon heart change and keeping your eyes on Jesus. Seek first His kingdom. Number two, you have to have love with action. Love with action. The strongest statements in favor of helping those who are going through these types of illnesses are those who provide spiritual support in hospice facilities. They serve as hospital chaplains. They render loving care in nursing homes and otherwise minister to the suffering and the dying. What I'm saying about that is, if you really want to address this, then have a love for the people who are going through these types of illnesses and this type of depression. Have a love for them that causes an action to come from you to them. 1 John 3:18, let us not love with words or tongue, but with action and in truth. So let us affirm our high valuation of suffering people by loving suffering people. Be sensitive to the needs of those with mental disorders, some of whom may be suicidal and need special care. So be supportive of those individuals who are called to that particular ministry, and support them with your finances, support them with your love, your prayers, and just in general be supportive. So here at the Revival Center, we have and it's still in development because mental illness is a part of our family, and we deal with it. We've dealt with it in our past in a very personal way on different levels. So that's the reason here at the church, putting love into action, is we're trying to develop a functional counseling ministry that we can provide people who can come in and have a safe place and talk through their issues and to deal with things. And not just talking to me, but raising up other anointed, Holy Spirit filled believers who have a gift for this, because it is a gifting, it's a calling, and to release them to serve our community and to serve you, so that nobody feels alone and nobody feels like they have to walk this life out by themselves. And so I'm very excited about that. Number three, we have to contend for the truth. It is necessary, biblical truth, as it pertains to the critical issues of our day whenever it comes to suicide and assisted suicide. So regardless of our feelings and our emotions, we still have to contend for the truth. The church must express in uncompromising terms its core moral values and spiritual convictions as they pertain to abortion and euthanasia, because we choose life. That is what we choose life. That's the biblical truth. We must hold elected officials accountable for their voting records. We must support pro-life legislation, oppose referendums in favor of assisted suicide, challenge our physicians, and articulate our opinions, and just like right here on YouTube. Number four, we need to provide wise and sensitive pastoral care here in the church. The church is not as, the families are devastated when these things happen. Questions about eternal destiny are absolutely raised, and the church is left to grapple with a sense of failure at times, especially whenever it happens on our watch. But it is at this point that the gospel of grace can begin to flow in healing power as pastors, family members, friends, and the believing community with wisdom and with sensitivity begin to handle and have these conversations with those in which it is affected by. No one other than our Lord Himself can know the depths of depression or illness out of which the decision to end one's life may have sprung from. Only God knows. Suicide entails reasoned and deliberate action for someone to take their own life. However, one who is clinically depressed or emotionally unbalanced is not normally regarded as fully responsible for their actions. Again, I think we've already shared this in a previous teaching of this series, but there are people who later in life has Alzheimer's, and they will act out a certain way. Maybe they cuss or they do things that is very uncharacteristic of who they were when they didn't have Alzheimer's. Are they held responsible for their actions, even though this disease has degraded their ability to reason and to think or to remember anything? No, I don't think God is going to hold that person responsible, no more than I would think God's going to hold a 4-year-old responsible for stealing a piece of candy at a store or whatever the case is. So there is a lot of that goes into this subject, which is why it makes it difficult. So therefore, questions that deal with eternal destiny cannot be decided by the survivors. You cannot say definitively in the judgment that is placed upon an individual. You can't do that because you are not God. I am not God. We must be all of those questions must be left in the hands of God, who is all-knowing, all-loving, and forever merciful and just. Recognizing the limits of human knowledge and the gracious nature of the Lord, the church can minister effectively in the midst of brokenness and in the midst of pain. Recognizing that ending one's life is never the solution. It is never something that should ever really be an option, that should come off the table, but it happens. And so we have to deal with it. And we have to deal with it with the graciousness and the mercifulness of God, recognizing that at the end of the day, Jason Allums is not the judge of another man or woman, and neither are you. And so our goal is to help people before it's too late, love them before it's too late, offer hope, offer help before it's too late, and believe that their hearts are going to change and that they will find the humility in their own life to submit themselves to God and His Word and get the help that they need, the healing that they need, because I believe that Jesus Christ is the answer to whatever the situation is. So with all that being said, if you're out there and you know someone who needs some help, please reach out here to the church. We will do everything we can to help them. The phone number is area code 205-672-7488. You can send an email, officevrc@gmail.com. We will make sure that we answer the phone, answer the email, and try to get them in the help that they need, whether it's here at the church, because we're always going to be in favor of life, hope, restoration, and ultimately healing. So thank you so much for joining us during this entire series. I hope that it's ministered to you. I hope that you join us as we do everything we can to share the love of Christ wherever we go. So thank you very much. Like this video, subscribe to it, and come and